On this episode, we are excited to welcome three exceptional artists whose diverse talents span across visual arts, fashion, and music, each making a significant impact in their respective fields. First, we have Ross Pino, an international artist born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Ross's tumultuous upbringing led him to embrace skateboarding, which fostered his love for fashion, art, and music. His goal is to awaken the inner child within individuals, offering a path to healing. Ross has established himself through solo exhibitions and group shows, and has generously donated his artwork to various charitable organizations. Joining Ross is Mokshini, a multidisciplinary artist with a professional focus on fashion illustration. Originally from New Zealand, Mokshini now resides in Brooklyn, where the streets and eccentric personalities of New York inspire her witty and sophisticated art. Her work ranges from painting to concept sketching, editorial, and textile design, capturing the whimsical essence of fashion and daily life in the city. Rounding out our trio is Elizabeth Nistico, known as Revenge Wife, the former lead singer of HOLYCHILD. Her solo project has garnered praise from publications like Paper, Flood Magazine, Substream Magazine, and Billboard. Beyond her solo career, she directs music videos and co-writes songs for other artists, including Future. On this episode, we delve into the journeys of Ross, Mokshini, and Elizabeth, exploring their creative processes and the profound impact of their work.
I'm Mokshini. I'm Sri Lankan, and I moved to New Zealand when I was maybe like 2. And I think just drawing so I'm an artist. Drawing has been a big part of my life. I don't even know, like since forever. And my mom kind of makes this joke that I drew before I wrote. So it's really just been a huge part of my life forever. And I was the only child. So I just like stayed in my room and drew all day. And when I was like about 9, my dad passed, and I think drawing just automatically became even more of important way of coping, healing, dealing. And honestly, I can't think of anything else I would rather do than draw all day. So anyway, other than all of that, I didn't really see it as a viable career path, I think, for a long time. And I did fashion design in the end. And thank God I had a mentor that was kind of like, you're way better at drawing than you are at fashion, and made me do a master's in fashion drawing. I didn't know that was a thing. This is in New Zealand, so anything's possible, you know? So I did fashion drawing, and I did that for 2 years, and I think that's where I really kind of honed in on this approach. Like, fashion drawing is such a different beast, because in animation and fine art school, there's like such a live drawing can go on for 2 hours.
Lahaya.
Slower next time.
Looks good. Looks good. We'll find it. We have a lost and found too, by the way, so no worries if you lose your phone, if you lose your socks, you lose your mind, we'll find it. Sorry, just to continue, you're saying...
What was I saying?
So much of not being able to think about doing it for a living.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I didn't really think of it as a viable career path, and then my mentor really kind of was like, just do it. And I did a master's in it for 2 years, and I think I found my voice there. And it's such a spontaneous kind of direct approach in fashion drawing, like a figure sketch you do in 2 minutes. It's not this 2-hour thing. And I think that's where I really kind of started to enjoy the spontaneity and serendipity of that style of drawing, which I still kind of, it's so a part of how I approach my work. My patience is so low. It's like, in a day I'll do like 2 or 3 drawings. So it's not like a month project. Yeah, and then, so after fashion school, I like became obsessed with New York. I don't know why. I watched this like Andy Warhol documentary, and he used to be a fashion illustrator. I don't know if you guys know, but he went into all the magazine, you know, back in the day, you could just show up and show your portfolio. And I was watching this documentary and I was like, I want to do that. It was way harder, but I came after I graduated, and I think everyone's plan from little New Zealand is to like stay on, and hopefully get sponsored. And one of my like dream jobs was to get a job at Ralph Lauren. They had like a crazy art department where you just sketched all day. And I knew that gig from like New Zealand, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to New York and get this gig. And I met a guy at a party, he worked at Ralph Lauren, and it like all worked out. And voila, I had a sponsorship in the first year. And so that's how I kind of managed to stay on. And in the beginning, it was such a high because it's New York and you're at Ralph Lauren and you see Ralph in the elevator, like Friends. You see him in the elevator, you go in and you sketch all day. But then after a while, I think it really made me quite complacent. And I found, like, there's 4 artists and they had to create the same style. So I think after a while, I would come home, paint for myself, and my style would kind of just be a Ralph Lauren style. And I felt myself kind of losing my voice. And so after about 3 years, that was like the red flag moment, and I left. And I've been freelancing ever since. I was like, okay, corporate's not for me. And then in this freelance journey, I think I've really kind of honed in on a certain process. And I think one of the biggest things for me is journaling, like sketching everywhere I go. Subway, if I'm traveling, I try not to take pictures, I'm sketching. It just helps me remember things more, but also it's so, how do I say it? It's like so much about like narrative and storytelling. So when you're just on the spot drawing in the moment, it's so much more different than when you're in the studio trying to create this perfect piece. So anyway, journaling is a big part, and then it kind of like feeds into my work eventually over time. Sometimes it doesn't. And then other things that I really love using is a light box, because I used to like draw and be over it in 2 seconds and throw it away. And my mentor was like, you know, you give up on your drawings too easy. You need to like rework them. And a light box has just been a huge part of my creative process, even to this day. I just like redraw stuff till I get it to a place that I really like. And then acrylic and watercolor is kind of my main thing, just because it's so quick and like spontaneous. Similar kind of thing, it's quick. And what else? I guess if you see my work, it's super colorful. And I guess what I'm trying to do with my work is evoke like a feeling of like joy and lightness. And I think things are like sometimes a bit too serious, honestly. And that's what I try to evoke in my work. And it's always, I always get inspiration with the things around me. So a lot of it is drawn from what I see. And one of the funnest personal projects that I'm currently doing is this thing called Operation Cheer Up. And it's basically, I started it during COVID, and it's basically me sketching these baby little originals, and I hang them around the city for people to find. And the reason why I did it, because I have such issues letting stuff go, or like I get too attached to stuff. So that was a personal practice for me to like just sketch, hang it up, and it's been such a fun project because I've been doing it everywhere I go. So I did it in Mexico, I did it in Miami, and it's a great way to just reflect on your trip and then kind of like connect with random people. I don't know.
I love that.
Yeah, and we've been doing ceramics as well, me and my partner, and so we've I don't know, it's also just that idea of letting go has been really nice because they all break and crack eventually. Yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
10 years ago, which is kind of crazy to say, but now has launched a solo project, otherwise known as Revenge Wife. Great name, and very awesomely. I'm big fan. She's also the cover girl of Spotify's Fresh Finds playlist for her new single that was just released on Friday. So thank you. But yeah, I'll let you tell yourself.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you. I am really excited about that because I just released a new song on Friday and it's been so long. I've been doing music for 10 years, like Johnny said. And yeah, I am the lead singer of HOLYCHILD. That is how I started doing music. I also consider myself a director, but in terms of music, yeah, I started HOLYCHILD a long time ago, and it's interesting because that music was all social commentary. Like I think I was really obsessed with what it means to be a woman, and it was 10 years ago, so we weren't in like a super feminist place yet. I think a lot's changed in 10 years in terms of the things that we're talking about culturally. And so I was really trying to explore all of these things. And actually the first thing that I directed was 3 videos that made up a short film that was like the cycle of objectification for women. And it was shown at MoMA. And that was in 2014 or 2015. So that was really cool and such an honor. And now I'm doing a solo project and it's been going well. I'm definitely like trudging through. I started releasing music with my new project 2 years ago. And yeah, I think right now I'm super inspired by personal growth and how I can be a better person. I think at a certain point I was like, why throw my words into this conversation that we're having as a culture about these things that I had been talking about for so long, because I was very frustrated with the lack of nuance culturally that we have. Like, I think that we were reaching a point where things are so clickbaity and things had to be like, you know, like it was almost like the definitions of things were losing the context. And so I didn't want to be a part of that conversation anymore. And I felt like there were so many people who were. So then now I'm in a much more personal place. And I'm also, like I said, I direct, so I'm also working on a horror film, which similarly, like, it's about an aging actress in LA who's like on a rampage about beauty standards in Hollywood. So it's kind of like this similar theme. And yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah. Yeah, Ross, an artist like these lovely women, and all you guys are probably creative. So I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico originally. I moved here when I was 20 years old. I was really good at skateboarding at one point in my life, and I had the opportunity to travel the United States on tour and like put on skate demonstrations for like festivals and whatnot, which is pretty cool. That was awesome. I destroyed my body. And I ended up moving here to New York, and I started doing modeling and acting. That kind of stumbled into my life and made a pretty good career doing that. That was pretty fun. Then I just didn't want to do like modeling anymore, so I got more into like the commercial, and then I wanted to like, you know, study a little bit more acting. Started doing some film, some television, you know, all that cool stuff. And then I realized that I really love tattoos. So I started getting heavily tattooed because I'm like, damn, like, I think like tattoos are like my calling. So I started getting tattooed heavily, you know, like riding motorcycles and like, you know, just chasing, you know, like, I guess like that ego trip or whatever. And I found myself in a pretty dark place. Life wasn't really fun anymore, even though like it was good, you know? And I started finding myself just spending a lot more time, you know, reflecting on, you know, the kind of person that I was becoming. And I stayed at home a lot, and I started doodling, and I started like drawing like skulls, you know, like very rebellious. I was like, yes, badass skulls. And then I started drawing them, and then I started painting them, and then I started messing around with like the duality of like, you know, like the like butterflies and like a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'm like, oh, I like that, you know. And what I didn't realize when I started drawing and painting, I was like, it was like therapy to me. I was like hashing through like my problems and my situations. And
yeah, pretty much I embraced like the rebellious side of it and like the carnal mind of, you know, man, but I also wanted to, you know, not stay in that place. So I started, you know, like doing smiley faces and a whole bunch of other weird things. And I kind of found like that my voice when it came to me being an artist was to speak about like duality and like the polarization of life, the highs, the lows, the good, the evil, the right, the wrong, positive, negative, you get it. And to, you know, forgive, you know, I guess the lower vibe version of yourself, right? And to step into that higher, you know, vibe, but also just to understand that that's life. You know, this is life, you know, like we're dualistic in nature, you know, like our avatar, you know, that we're in, our soul that, you know, we embody this, you know, this vessel of sorts is dualistic, you know, and obviously there's extreme polarities, you know, and we could go into, you know, that another time, but I like to, you know, just embrace the fullness of life. And I guess what I try to show people through my artwork is to, you know, embrace it and, you know, have fun with life. And if you make mistakes, get back up. Like, don't beat yourself up, you know, love who you are, love other people, give people forgiveness whenever they need it. And yeah, just enjoy the whole process.
It's so interesting, you know, I think one of the things I'm hearing from a lot of you guys is the fact that you guys also express your art across so many different mediums. You know, all of you individually have different forms. I know Mokshini, you know, with text ceramics and also illustration. Elizabeth, you know, you're directing and making music. Ross, you're skating, tatted up with skulls while painting butterflies, happy smiley faces. I think, you know, so much of the artistic process and creative process is trying to find our voice and then trying to communicate and transmit that voice. I'm so curious because you guys are also interdisciplinary. How do you get your voice across the different mediums in which you play in? How do you develop a unified voice that translates across the different things that you guys work on?
Do you want to say? Sure. I think like it's funny because I talk quite a bit like and for freshmen teaching fashion figure drawing, and the first thing they ask is like, how do I get a style? How do I develop a style? And it's like there's such a focus on having this voice, this strong voice, and I keep saying like it's so hard to just come up with a voice, to come up with a style, and I think developing a voice is less about the stylistic approach, like what colors do you use, what techniques do you use? Is it a collage? Is it watercolor? It's less about the output. It's more about like it's what you're trying to say and what you're trying to evoke in the work, right? So it's like you for me, when I'm creating work, I want like I said before, there to be a lightness, like a sense of play, a sense of curiosity, whether it's through the colors or all that stuff. But the way I use the materials and the techniques aren't necessarily my focus and what I translate in each of those departments. It's more like, what is the feeling I want to create when people look at this vase, or look at this painting, or look at this mural, or whatever. It's like I want to evoke the same types of feelings. I think more about that than how can I make everything cohesive and unified.
Yeah, it's a little bit like storytelling, right? Exactly. It's like you have an idea in your head. Like mine, like I said, is like playing off duality, life, death, all that stuff. And for other people, it could be, you know, women's rights. Another person will be like very political in, you know, their approach. Some people are just, you know, very like fun and funky, you know, and they want to express, you know, themselves in like a very fun, energetic way. But I think like, yeah, whatever is deep down within you, you know, and that you hold very dearly, how can you express that in, I guess, the medium that you're using?
Yeah, medium is definitely like the less important thing to me. Like first is expression and what you're gonna say. And I also work with other artists. Like I songwrite for other artists. Oh yeah, I should have said this in the introduction, but I wrote a song for Future, the rapper. And I write songs for other artists too, like pop music for them. And when
Can I get a song?
Would you say?
Can I get a song?
Yeah, you want a song? I'll give you a song. You want a pop
Can I
song?
get the homie discount is really what I'm saying.
I got you. But when I'm working with people, it's really interesting because a lot of artists are very concerned with if a song like fits in their overall vibe. And that has never been a concern for me personally as an artist. And I'm, in fact, like I want everything to sound different because I think when like another person hears my music, they're probably all like, oh, it all sounds the same. So if I can feel like there's a huge variation within something that's true to me, then I think that it'll be more varied, if that makes sense. But I think that for me, like having a consistent voice across all mediums really comes from being super honest when I'm creating and always trying to be like really honest, especially with what I'm into at that time. Because I realized like when I look back at my life, like I could really define it by like the things that I'm obsessed with at that time. Like right now, I'm super obsessed with music from the 70s. Like I just only want to listen to music from the 70s, play music from the 70s. Like that's what I'm into right now. So yeah, those like really staying true to what you're inspired by and what you're like diving into intellectually as well.
Yeah, it's like so much of it seems like, you know, your life is what is being transmitted through your process as a creative. Almost of, you know, we talk about like our life is the work of art here. Out of curiosity, you know, like so much of the journey of an artist also comes with a lot of challenges. You know, we're living our day-to-day lives, we're transmitting, you know, things that are flowing through us into our artwork, but sometimes lightning does not strike. Sometimes the well runs dry. I'm curious how you each deal with creative blocks in your process.
Okay, me first again. Well, I'm going through one right now. Yeah, it's so annoying. It's so frustrating. I think like today I came to the realization like this is just part of the process. Like I think I have to not attach whether it's good or bad to it. So I think that's what I kind of used to do in the past is like, oh no, this is a bad thing. I shouldn't be having a block. It's taking away from my productivity and fighting it almost, as opposed to just being like, okay, like maybe this is a sign. Maybe this is highlighting some fears. Maybe it's some self-doubt here. Maybe it's boring and I don't want to stop. Maybe it's hard and I don't want to. Like it just forces you to kind of stop and reflect at how maybe you can get yourself moving again, maybe. Other than all the other tools, like try a new location, try a new material, try this, there's so many things you could try. But ultimately, I think it's like, at your core, like what is the hang up? Like maybe you're just scared.
Yeah, this resonated with me. I just posted it on my Instagram. Vincent Van Gogh said, if you hear a voice within you say, you cannot paint, then by all means paint. And that voice will be silenced. So I take a different approach. Like I don't allow myself to ever like get into creative blocks, only because like I'll try something new and I'll just like, you know, push through it. And even if it turns out like shit, I'm going, you know, I'm turning the wheel, you know. And I mean, that's, you know, easier said than done at times, especially for people that actually do experience creative blocks like you. But I like to challenge myself in that way so that I don't get stuck. And also on that same note, like I'm not gonna just like produce something for the sake of producing it. I want it to be fun. I want it to be me. I don't ever want to put something out there that is not authentically me or that I don't vibe with. So if at any point I do find myself like painting something that, you know, is like, or whatever it is, whatever creative endeavor I'm doing, that is taking away from my personality, I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, let me just take a second to organize my thoughts because I was just listening to you. I agree with you. I do think that existence and living and life is art. I think everything that you choose in your life is art, like where you're living, who you're surrounding yourself with, the things that you're consuming, like the things that you do on a daily basis. To me, that feels like a creative choice. And beyond that, I think if we're having a discussion on the process of creativity, I feel really connected to spirituality when I'm creating. Like it seems like one and the same. I think any not to say this, but like any true artist I know who's like really channeling that thing and is really like making something that they feel is super honest, I feel that that is a spiritual act. And so when you're talking about things like creative blocks, I feel like it's really necessary to like have faith in the universe and like, okay, I know that like maybe I need this right now. And we talked about it earlier, like having a paradigm shift on it, like, okay, I'm in a creative block. I also like personally, I don't have that thought. Like I don't believe in creative blocks. I don't think I've had times where I'm like not writing that many songs, and I have times where I'm writing like 300 songs a month, and like I don't feel like, I don't know, a creative in the times where I'm not writing, I don't understand that concept of a creative block in that way. I just think like maybe you need a rest, and like maybe it's just you need to rest, and like that's okay too, because it's just like it's the long game. And I think that going off of that, there's so much pressure that we have to like create and make this thing before we're too old to do it. And like, oh no, you're going to be too old. And it's like, fuck that. Like there's so much time. This is our full life, and we are all full artists forever. And so like, it's okay to have like a 2-year-long rest if you want from creating. Like, what's the shame in that? Even though that's not going to happen, you know, you're probably going to pick it up. Like, you'll have a week where you're like, oh, okay, I feel rejuvenated. Then you'll get back in it.
I hear you guys. I hear you. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just stare at a blank canvas and I'm like, the options are endless with this. Like, where do I go with it? And I guess, yeah, it's just starting, you know? And I know, I think also like working for a client is different, because there's like a parameter, there's a brief, there's an outline, there's a conversation. But the minute it becomes that's what we kind of were talking about, is like the minute it becomes just me and myself and my canvas, it's like a whole thing in my own head. So I think, yeah, just trusting that gut a little bit more and working through that. But yeah, it's easier said than done.
Yeah, very curious to expound a little bit on the differences working for a client. I mean, I think many of us here as creatives have done work for other folks that are not ourselves as a way to make a living. It's a very fair thing to do, but there's so many differences, as you mentioned, between working for a client versus working on your own art. I'm curious, how do you sort of see those differences? And I'm sure you guys have also done stuff for Future versus for yourself. Very different. Or maybe exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to that song and if you know my music, like you'll definitely feel like, oh my God, you totally wrote this, because I wrote the whole thing. But to answer your question, like working, yeah, it's really interesting. Like when I first really started songwriting for other people, like I'm such a lyricist, and so people would be like, okay, yeah, like I want lyrics about this vague concept. And then I'd be like, okay. And then they would look over my hand as I'm writing it in my notebook. And I was like, and it's so nerve-wracking. It's like, is this what you wanted? Like, you're watching me like, oh my God, it made me so nervous. I really feel like I went through, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of musicians here, but with HOLYCHILD, like, our label put us through hundreds of sessions because they were like concerned with getting a pop hit. So I was in like session boot camp, really, like going to sessions, randomly meeting a person that I never knew, talking to them for an hour, then like making a song with them, it's like such an arduous process if you don't know them and you're like trying to vibe with them. So I did the session thing hard, and it made me a really good songwriter, I think, because I did that. And so now at this point I can just like create like that for other people, but it took a long time to get there, and it was definitely nerve-wracking. And I remember like a session that I was in, like I remember I used to like hate these people I would do sessions with. One time I was like really pissed off at these people because they were like, man down. These people were like, we want to make, anyway, these people were bothering me. I was in a session. This is like a long time ago. And I remember I like wrote lyrics about them, and then I was like, all right, I got lyrics. I didn't tell them what it was about. And then I went in the vocal booth and I was like, bah, you're all sheep, bah. And that was like the chorus. And I was like, I thought it was so clever. I definitely burned that bridge, but.
She'll never work with Kanye again.
I mean, I guess with my medium, you know, fine art and stuff, I have a lot of people that come up to me and they're like, I have this idea, would you be able to, you know, like do it? And usually I'm just, most of the time, actually all the time, I'm just like, listen, like if you like my work, you know, like either choose something that you already see that you know, vibe with, or if I'm gonna create something for you, I'm gonna do it, and you're gonna give me full creative, you know, freedom in this mission, because you're coming to me for my creative mind, essentially. You know, like you like my work, like why are you gonna dictate what my work looks like or feels like, you know? And so, I mean, I take creative, you know, criticism and all that stuff, like, you know, very, very well. Like I used to do acting, and I used to be behind the camera, in front of the camera. But at the same exact time, like this is, I guess, the medium that I'm working with now. I don't want to be bothered by people, you know. I'll turn down money and whatever it is, you know, opportunities if somebody, you know, tries to direct and dictate what's coming out of, you know, I guess, this brain of mine.
What about for $1 billion?
Only for you.
Can I get a homie discount?
Yes.
You know, I think the interesting thing I'm hearing is like so much of the process for all of us is about being authentic to our voice, finding what our voice is, being authentic to it, staying true to it, whether it's working with an external party or not. Like Elizabeth, you're talking about the song you wrote for Future. It's really one of your songs, sung by Future, rapped by Future, and then the one that you did for Kanye, who, you know, his famous hit Baba.
Kanye.
Yeah, I'm curious how you guys think about, you know, as you start developing your voice, being able to transmit it across the different mediums. Like, how do you get into the flow state of your creativity? What is your flow state secret? I mean, I know for me, like, I get into flow state at the Vegas buffet when I'm like 6th place deep, you know, just like hounding fries, and then you get sushi, and then you get the crab, and then you get the Chinese food. Is all that's how I get through flow state. But I'm curious about your flow state.
Sure, why not? Flow state. Wow. I think it's like one of those like magical moments when it's like, oh, finally I'm in flow state, but you don't aware because you're, you know, in flow state. Yeah, it's really cool. I feel like I haven't mastered it. I get into flow state, and it's awesome because it's almost like your hand does all the work and your brain is somewhere else, and and there's so much engagement and joy in it as you're doing it. You're not like in your head about it, or what color should I pick? I don't know. It's really great. But I was reading an article about it being possible to kind of activate all the things that you need to create a flow state for yourself. So it's kind of like, you know, creating things that are, doing things that are a tiny bit hard, but not too hard. There's like all these, like, it's a fine line, but I know that you can cultivate this flow, and I wanna do that more. Music helps, music.
Yeah, I was telling you guys, like right now I'm actually teaching meditation and songwriting to kids in the Bronx. And like when I started teaching them, I was like, what could I really give these people? Like they're already going to be in art class, like learning how to be on, paint. They're already going to be in music class, learning the chords. Like, what could I really give them? And I thought I can really give them like the confidence to be connected with yourself before you create, regardless of the medium. So we're doing a bunch of stuff like meditation, and then like I'm teaching them how to come up with melodies, which I feel like is kind of this concept of flow state. You're just kind of like, I feel like you just start listening and then you just saying what you want to hear. And that's to me like how you can come up with melodies. And I don't know, it's interesting, like the concept of flow state, because I feel like flow state is just like one of those great days where you like have an amazing breakfast and like the sun feels so good on you and like this bird flies by and it's the bird that you've been waiting to see, and like then you like run into someone and they're like, oh my God, like I was just wanting to see you because I have this opportunity for you, and you're like, everything's working out, like yeah. But I think that meditation and being really connected with yourself is super important to the creative process. And like that's what I was talking about with spirituality, and then also like taking care of yourself in all the ways that we have to, sleeping, eating, etc., exercising.
Yeah, so flow state for me, it's like priming, like a lawnmower or something. Or like an engine, like getting that gas in like the little chamber or whatever. What I'll do is I'll like put on some music, some really cool ass music, and then I'll just like, vibe with it. And then I'll get my paints out and then I'll start mixing them. And then right there, it's just the process of like doing like that basic stuff is just like, you're vibing, you're like flowing, and then you like, maybe you take the canvas and you gesso it or whatever, put down your colors, and then you like, map it out or whatever. And maybe the first marks that you do are like complete shit. But like when you're vibing with that, I forgot to mention a couple of beers or something too. Like that takes the edge off. It's like, man, I don't have any, like shits and, cares in the world. Like I could give a fuck what goes on in this, in this space. This is me. This is the canvas. And if it turns out like shit, whatever, cool. And sometimes whenever it does turn out like shit for me, I just scrap it, take it off, put another one up, and eventually you'll fall into that flow state. It's like you have to throw yourself in the water and you'll start swimming. Essentially, that's what always works for me.
It's interesting, like so much of we were talking earlier about this like creative blocks, and flow state is like the opposite of creative block. It's almost like getting into flow state can also be thought of as managing the blocks or the obstacles in our creative process. There's this idea of like diffuse thinking, where if you're working on a problem or or stuck on something, you're primarily using your prefrontal cortex. You're thinking about it actively. Go take a walk. Don't look at your phone. Definitely don't be distracted. But go take a walk. Go take a hot shower. Or go take a nap. And you actually draw more connections throughout your entire brain versus just in your prefrontal cortex. And it's through making these connections that were previously not connected that allows us to come up with new ideas. I think before we wrap it up, I think one last question for the panel, the wonderful panelists here. If you could share one creative tidbit in your process that's worked for you, or your secret sauce, what would that be? What works for you?
Who wants to go first?
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna say it again. My secret sauce, my one tidbit is definitely connecting with yourself. It's like, I'm calling it spirituality because to me, there's this like relationship that I have with myself that is ancient, and that feels so powerful to me. And like cultivating that and standing in that, like that allows me to make art, and it makes me feel confident in my art because I'm like, at least I have myself, and it makes me not care about what other people think because I have that connection with myself. And sometimes I have dreams about my higher self, and it's funny because the first time that I saw her in my dreams, she was wearing this purple scarf, and it looked like she shops at like a museum gift shop for her jewelry. And I was really viscerally upset by what she was wearing. It really bothered me. And I was like, who is that person? And I knew who she was. She's like an older version of me in my dreams, but I can never see her face. And I was like, of course. Like she would be wearing something polarizing to me because that's like so me. And I think just that connection makes you feel like, okay, I can do the things that I'm supposed to do. You don't have to be painting or making music. Like whatever you're doing, I think is art, whatever choice you make. So that feels super special to me, that relationship with myself. And we all have that, and we can all be here being like, yeah, I'm with myself right now. So go us.
I think I got one.
Yeah.
I think just like waiting for inspiration, it just doesn't happen. So I think just the active act of just waking up and carving out time to do something for yourself. Literally just, I don't really journal, write, but I do random things like you have 1 minute to draw a chicken eating a shawarma. A bunny riding a bicycle. Like little things that I keep for myself. I don't share them on Instagram or whatever. And I think that really helps. I don't know. I think just carving out that space for myself, and I try to be as consistent as possible with that, but it just helps me stay outside the box, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I think, who was it that said, I don't wait for inspiration, I go after it with a bat. It's like that same idea of just like going for it.
Yeah, because it doesn't just magically appear.
Do you guys remember when you were children and you guys didn't give a fuck about anything? You just did whatever popped into your head? Yeah, do more of that, just like have fucking fun and don't give a shit about what other people think. And like Shia LaBeouf said, just do it, just fucking do it. Whatever it is that you're doing, fucking do it to the best of your ability and have fun with it. That's all I gotta say.
I love it. And on that note, just do it, everybody.